All right, good morning, and welcome to another class. Today we are just going to be considering the first part of our series in the topic of statistics. This is the introduction part of statistics, and we'll be considering a few definitions of terms and how they will be applied. So briefly, as you can see on the screen, the definition of statistics: this is a discipline that concerns the collection, organization, analysis, interpretation, and the presentation of data. So first of all, in statistics, you have to collect whatever it is you want to work upon. You collect the data, you have to organize, then you come to the aspect where you have to analyze the data that you have, you interpret the data, and the final aspect of it has to do with the presentation of the data. Now, the collection of the data has to do with the raw aspect of statistics. It may truly not make any kind of sense to those who truly needs it, but by the time the data has been worked upon by process of organization, analysis, and interpretation, when it is now time for it to be presented to the end user, if it has been worked upon, it now becomes useful to whoever it is that data that you have collected is meant for, or the purpose for which it is supposed to serve will now become valuable and useful. Now, basically in your exam, if you are writing WAEC or probably NECO, your statistics will be subdivided into two major aspects. The first aspect is what we call the measures of dispersion or central tendency. This has to do with basically the middle of terms of a discrete data as it is supposed to be. So your mean, the first type of your measures of location or central tendency is what we call the mean. Sometimes it is also called arithmetic mean. We also have what is called geometric mean, which is not usually common in mathematics. And we also have harmonic mean, which also is not usually common. Basically, the common types of measures of location are your mean, your median, and your mode. But all of them from A to E are also examples or types of measures of locations or central tendency. Now, the second aspect or the second types of statistics is the range. It's what they call the mean, the measures of dispersion. Measures of dispersion. Now, the examples of your measures of dispersion are what you can see on the screen. We have the range. Now, your range here can be of any type: your normal range, or what we have your semi-interquartile range, or your interquartile range, or any kind of range that you see in any question has to do with what we call measures of dispersion. Then we have your mean deviation, your variance, and then the standard deviation. Now remember, like I said at the beginning of the class, that this is just the introductory aspect of statistics. Now, one of the key things I want us to note is what we have here. Now, usually in WAEC, you will not be asked to use calculation to determine your median and mode of a grouped frequency distribution. Now, in terms of distribution of data, we have what they call discrete data. Now, these are data that are not grouped together. Every one of them usually used to stand on their own. They are not grouped. So if you have one will have to stay on its own, two will stay on its own, Y3 will stay on its own. When you have numbers like that, dispersed numbers like that, is what we call a discrete data. Now we have what is called a group data or group frequency distribution set of data. Now in this type, we use what is called class intervals or limits to bring them together. So for example, in a class where you have a student ranging from the age of, let's say, maybe 4 years to probably 12 years, we can group this set of students or children into a group. For example, you can have from 4 years to 6 years, for 7 years to 9 years, like that. Now, if you notice what has been done, grouping has been brought into the question or into these particular instances. So, for example, if we are looking for children who falls between the age of 4 and 6, we will know by the way we have grouped them. So, when you see things like 1 to 4, 5 to 8, or 12 to probably 10 or 15, that is what we call group frequency distribution. Now in your WAEC, though we have formula that we use to solve, but in WAEC or NECO, we usually are not going to be asked to use formulas to determine the median and mode of this set of group frequency distribution. Now, anytime WAEC wants you to determine the median of a group frequency distribution, you will be asked to draw or plot or construct a cumulative frequency curve. That is essentially what that curve is meant for. And again, if they also want you to determine the mode of a group frequency distribution, they will ask you to draw or plot or construct an histogram. So in summary, your cumulative frequency curve is used essentially to determine the median of a group frequency distribution, while your histogram is used essentially to determine the mode of a group frequency distribution. Now, this is a brief introduction to the subject of statistics. Now, based on this section that we have considered, let's look at some past question review on this section. Now, if you look at this section, we basically have just 3 questions, which should be enough to explain the notes that we have just considered. Now, in JAMB 2019, this is actually an economics question, but it's also not out of place. The question says, the following are measures of locations except. Now, in option A, we have arithmetic mean, option B, harmonic mean, option C, we have the range, and option D, we have the geometric mean. Now, if you truly cannot pick the answer at a face value, it simply means you did not follow the class or the first section of this note, and I will advise you to go over it so that you acquaint yourself with the different types of the measures of locations and measures of dispersion. Now, in this case, the answer is range, as range is an example of a measure of dispersion. Now, in the second question, it says which of the following is not a measure of location. Remember that it can also be called measures of central tendency. It can also be called measures of central tendency. Measures of central tendencies. But in this case, they have decided to use measures of location. Now, we have mean, median, variance, and mode. The answer in this case is is variance, as variance is also an example of measure of dispersion. And finally, for the past question review on this section, the question says, this is WAEC 2003, I think about question 50. It says, which of the following is not a measure of dispersion? The average, mean deviation, mean, and standard deviation. And our answer in this case is mean, as mean is a measure of central tendency or a measure of locations. Now, in order not to make the video to be too long, I've tried as much as possible to reduce the length of the video, and I hope this will actually build a good foundation in this series of statistics class that we are going to be having. If you have any question, any comment, you can leave it in the comment section, and I will do well to respond to it in due time. And please make sure, if you have gotten any benefit from this, make sure to hit the subscription button. Try as much as possible to give us a like and also share with your friends. Till we meet again in our next class. Thank you and have a wonderful time.